This is the Marketing Agency Power Hour, and I'm your host, Cal Wilder. Each week, we'll power through discussions on business challenges, success stories, and game-changing strategies. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, provider of bookkeeping and accounting for marketing agencies. Let's get started. So I'm very interested to speak to today's guest. He's an entrepreneur, a professional leader, speaker, and a published writer. He's been featured in Forbes Council and PR News and PR Week. He's an engaging speaker who presented at Augmented World Expo EU 2024 and previously hosted a weekly radio program on Voice of America. He is the co-founder and CEO of Lightspeed PR Marketing. Ethan Rasiel, welcome to the show.
Hey, Cal, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thrilled to have you. So let me ask you the first question I ask every guest. What is the single most powerful strategy for success in your marketing agency now?
What we have found is that we have to be fortune tellers. We have to predict the future to be successful. When you're in the service industry like we are doing PR, you're dealing with people, and you have to anticipate things like emotions, and not always try to use numbers. You can't always measure someone's opinion. So it's really understanding, are people happy? Are they enjoying working with us? Will they enjoy working with us in 6 months? Is there anybody who maybe isn't aware of what we're doing on the client side who should be? If we can make sure that everybody knows what's going on and is in the loop, we can anticipate any issues down the road.
So what size clients do you deal with? I assume you must deal with some larger clients if you're talking about like multiple points of contact, not knowing exactly who you are, et cetera.
Yeah, we specialize in the technology space, so consumer electronics and VR and health tech and supply chain, but we have clients really running the gamut. We have some that are startups with a handful of people, and then we have big multi-million-dollar publicly traded organizations with lots of layers of hierarchy.
So how do you go about making sure that everybody at the client knows who you are and why you matter and why they should keep working with you?
It's honestly one of our biggest challenges is we're communicators. And if you work at a PR agency, your first priority is to communicate what your client is doing, but we have to communicate about ourselves too. And it's not always intuitive to do that. So I'm always reminding my team, like, tell them what you did. Take credit for what you've done. So it's as simple as, like, give you a really easy example, really simple example. We get a great placement for a client. You were in TechCrunch. Instead of saying, hey, congratulations, you were in TechCrunch, we say, hey, congratulations, you were TechCrunch. This happened because we called the reporter and set up a briefing, like reminding them, like, how did this happen? Our team did X, Y, and Z. These were the stuff. We sent them a product. We met with them at a trade show. This came about because you did this event that we recommended. So it's not bragging. It's just the facts. Like, so people don't remember. They just figured, oh, well, great. We were in TechCrunch. It happened automatically. But you need to take credit for what you did.
Yeah, I've got a similar challenge here because I run an accounting business called SmartBooks, and most of what accountants do is behind the scenes in the background. And, business owners we work with don't always appreciate everything we do. They just want to complain about the bills sometimes. And so we need to coach our people to explain, what we did that's below that. I always talk about that line of visibility, like above the line of visibility, clients know it, they see it, they can appreciate it, they can complain about it, they're aware of it. Below the line of visibility, they don't know we did a bunch of work, but then they get a bill, right? And so like helping raise some of the things we do below the line of visibility, up above the line of visibility is important.
Really important, and especially for marketing people like us. That line of visibility, the stuff below the line is very mysterious. No one knows what I run a PR firm. I know you work with all kinds of marketing agencies, but PR is especially mysterious. No one knows what we do.
Very hard to measure what you do.
We can measure the results, but it's hard to measure the work that went into those results. So we actually do a thing for clients that I recommend all your listeners do. We do a training session. I like to tell my clients, if you want to drive a car, you need a driver's license, right? Or you can't drive. If you want to go hunting, you need a hunting license. If you want to hire a marketing agency, you just write a check and you hope for the best. And so what we do is we do a class. We have a 101, a 201, a 301. We have a syllabus, and we teach them how to be good clients. Clients don't know how to be good clients. We know how to do our job and you know how to do your job, but your customers don't know how to properly utilize you. So that training that we do at Lightspeed Academy, and it's really something our clients really enjoy.
So specifically, like what do you get into? Because I've got a similar internal training curriculum I try to use, I think, with my accounting team, but it's very difficult to get certain, personality types to want to coach and challenge a client and stand up for themselves, right? It's very hard sometimes because we're in the service industry. We just want to make the clients happy and do what they ask, but sometimes that's not always the best thing for a long-term sustainable relationship.
You said something really profound right there. Sometimes it isn't. And I have to fight that feeling of let's make the client happy all the time. The truth is, sometimes we have to say something the client doesn't want to hear. Tough love. And sometimes we have to disagree. And sometimes we have to say they're wrong. And sometimes we have to point out issues. Sometimes we have to tell them that the thing they've asked for can't be done. And my team will say, I can't say that. I don't want to upset the client. I say, well, we're going to get fired anyway if we fail. So I'd rather just rip off the Band-Aid and give them the bad news now. This isn't going to work. Than not. And to your question about like what's covered in the treaty, that's a big part of it. We do a whole section on potential why you might fail. Here are the 5 behaviors that will cause failure and how to avoid them. One of those, for example, and I'm sure you have encountered this, is not giving enough time. Like if they want us to do an announcement, we need a month. A client calling us and saying, hey, we've got an announcement Thursday, do a campaign, that's going to fail. And rather than saying, sure, let's go for it, we tell them that's going to fail. Sorry, don't hate me, it's going to fail. And so that's what we go through in the training, like all the ways that you don't do these things. That's just part of it, but that's a big help.
Right. And you do some work with clients that have like major problems, right? I know like crisis management is not the main focus of your business, but you do work with some of those, right? That must be a particularly intense kind of engagement.
It is intense. Yeah. Before I started this agency with my co-founder, Amanda, I was the communications director at Samsung Electronics. And I was on the crisis committee there because we were dealing with, a product gets recalled, or our tablet, blew up on a plane, or, whatever was going on, political issues. So, and Amanda has the background in crisis as well. So when clients have a crisis, we do help them. And it does come up, not all the time, but we're ready to help with, the first thing we do is we try to do crisis preparedness. So what could go wrong? And being ready with communications policy and FAQ and landing page and media training. There's all these things you can do and identifying what could go wrong. And then when something does go wrong, we can help repair our broken reputation. We've done that. We do that. It is exciting. It does ruin my weekends usually because we're on calls at all hours with lawyers and people, but we can help if the key is I only ask one thing, and that is be prepared to listen. Have an open mind. If you're coming to me for advice, you may not agree, but we have a lot of experience, so we usually can help if you listen.
So a lot of agency owners I talked to, they had a career path where they were, working at a larger marketing firm and then they struck out on their own, which is kind of tried and true. But you have the benefit of actually managing marketing internally at companies like Samsung. So you're on kind of the buyer side of the table early in your career. Now you're on the seller side of the table. So how has that shaped how you approach your business?
It's been really helpful. And by the way, I've done the big agency thing too. I was at Edelman for almost 15 years before Samsung. So I had that experience too. But being the client eh, was so valuable every day. Helpful to have been sitting where the client sits and to be the one who hires a PR agency and manages the PR agency. I'll give you one example of something that has been really helpful to me that I want everybody to keep in mind. And that is the client isn't the client all the time. They're the client when they're talking to you, the PR person, during that 1 hour call. They're clienting you, they're managing you. The rest, you may wonder, what does the client do with the rest of the other 39 hours a week when they're not on that call with you? They have their own clients, their own managers. They have a lot of bosses. There's usually, if you're a PR director, there's a CMO, there may be a VP of marketing, there may be a CEO. What's often a revelation to people is that their clients are only the client for like an hour a week when they're working with you, when they're on that call with you. The rest of the time, they're not just sitting back and eating bonbons and waiting for your report. They're dealing with their own clients. They're dealing with their own, the CMO or VP of marketing or CEO or the board of directors. Being the client is not as glamorous as it may seem. It's very stressful and very intense. So have a little sympathy for the client. They're busy. And so knowing what their life is like is
Yeah, I mean, the tendency to blame the client, I think, is pervasive among service providers, and we have to resist the urge to blame the client when things aren't going well. The client's not a fit. The client did this. The client did that. But the reality is, we all need to make sure we are fits for the client, not the other way around.
That's exactly right. And the way that I look at it is, we have clients that maybe they don't know that much about PR, or maybe they need some time to get back to us. Maybe they have some challenges. What I tell my team is those are opportunities for us. The less that the client is comfortable with marketing or with PR, the more they need experts like us to help them. So I don't see it as a downside if they're, I hate to use the word clueless, but that's a word that people might use. If they're a little bit unfamiliar with marketing, hey, you called the right person. We're here to help. So those challenges are really opportunities.
And I've also found, I'm 49 years old. I've been in the services industry most of my career, and I've generally found that the clients who are the most challenging, a lot of them are the ones that teach you the most. They might be a pain in the neck to deal with. And then you get the occasional one who's just a bad apple, who's evil and, whatever. But most of the time, they just have high expectations and they challenge you to meet those expectations or manage those expectations, right? So I don't mind difficult clients. I think we learn a lot from them most of the time. They make us better.
I think you're 100% right. Yes, when a client can push us out of our comfort zone to be better and more creative and more thoughtful and more efficient, that oftentimes we come up with new ways of doing things that benefit all the rest of our clients too. There is a line that can be crossed. You use the word evil. I will use the word toxic. Maybe that's some more descriptive, but there are people who are fundamentally unpleasant and abusive. And one of the things, I was at Edelman for a long time, and one of the things that I love about being the CEO and the co-founder of my own agency is we don't have to tolerate that kind of behavior. If a client crosses the line into being abusive, we have to fire them, and we have done it. I wish I could say we've only done it once, but we've done it a few times. Um, Everybody needs to be professional and respectful. Being challenging, no, like you said, that's cool. Being demanding, great. You do that. You do you. But as long as it doesn't cross the line into uh, um, abusive behavior, we're fine.
So your firm has a focus on supporting clients in the virtual reality and augmented reality space, which I'm curious about. I haven't spoken to another agency owner who has that kind of a focus. And I know you've got some background there. Could you just kind of explain what VR and AR mean and the kinds of clients that you work with and what you do for them in that space?
Yeah. Well, I could spend a whole hour talking about what we call XR now. Now XR and spatial computing. So XR, the X just being VR or AR. So we just call it XR. These acronyms are terrible, aren't they? But I really got into this when I was working at Samsung because we launched a product called the Gear VR, and that was a product that would snap onto your phone and give you a 3D display. These days, they're standalone. You may have heard of the Meta Quest or the Ray-Ban spectacles. Um, we have found, and okay, let me define what it is. What's VR? VR is a virtual world. If you've seen Ready Player One, you know what VR is. You put on the headset. Instead of looking at a screen like I am right now, the screen surrounds you, and because it's in 3 dimensions, it feels like you're really there. So that's VR, virtual world. AR is when content is, you're still seeing the actual real world as you are, but there's content laid on top of it. So a great example of AR is a heads-up display. If you're a fighter pilot and there's that information on the windshield, you're seeing the real world and wearing a big helmet. But the information is there. Soon you're going to see, here's a spoiler alert, you're going to start seeing AR on your car windshield. So instead of having that map, if you're driving and you have the map and you're looking over here or looking away from your windshield to look at the map, imagine if the map was built into your windshield. And if that arrow where to turn was right overlaid on top of the actual road, I know that would help me. I always get lost. So that kind of stuff is really helpful. What we have found with all of this stuff, you mentioned you haven't heard too much about agencies doing this. It was overhyped. VR was positioned as something that everybody would use all the time, and it would be the new way of living. It's turned out to have a more specific use case. And it's usually the really great use case is enterprise training. So we have found that training for firefighters, for doctors, even retail stores, where you can have a simulation of something to learn how to do it right before it really happens, whether it's doing surgery or arresting people. These kinds of simulations are super valuable, and they're being used a lot. So those of you who want to learn more about VR and AR, we actually are the PR agency for a conference that promotes this technology. It's called Augmented World Expo. So check out Augmented World Expo, AWE. It's in June in California, in Long Beach, Southern California. And then we have another one coming up in a little more than a month. In the beginning of December, United XR is our European show. It's in Brussels this year. So check out United XR and Augmented World Expo, and love to, anybody who wants a pass, let me know and I'll hook you up.
Yeah, thank you. That's fascinating because a lot of us, like myself included, I'm not big into this, and my perception of VR tends to be shaded by the metaverse and Facebook's attempt to get into virtual worlds, and that was kind of scary and I guess not successful. But what you're describing is very different. It's like a very tactical, hands-on way to utilize technology to train people for their jobs, not just have fun on the internet at night or something.
Right. NASA is using it to train astronauts right now. That's currently being used. So instead of putting them like in the Arctic or in the North Pole. They can just be in any environment and test out the feeling of being isolated for long hours using VR.
And so how did you get hooked on this segment of the marketplace?
Well, it was really when I worked at Samsung and we launched a product. It was called Gear VR and it hooked onto your phone. And I loved it. I kind of fell in love. I've always loved 3D. I love the 3D movies. You remember the red and blue glasses? For people who may remember that. I've always loved when this stuff comes out of the screen and, in 3D. So this is like the new version of that. And to me, it's awesome. I don't mind wearing the helmet, but the good news is those helmets are going away and it's just going to be a pair of sunglasses that you put on. One of our clients is X-Real. I would encourage you to check out X-Real. It just looks like sunglasses. You can try that. And it's a great product.
And so if I buy X-Real, what service do I connect with to use those?
You just plug it into your phone. So anything that's on your phone, it gives you the feeling of a giant television. It looks like a 200-inch TV floating in the air, but it's just built into your glasses. So I use it like it's great on the airplane. You have a long flight and you don't like the in-flight entertainment on that little screen with the bad audio. You put these things on, you have a giant screen. It's like you're sitting in a movie theater in your seat.
And is media designing their, what do we call it, their native reels to support this stuff, or does this technology behind like the X-Reel convert it to the immersive 3D experience for you?
That's a great question. It does do a conversion to a 3D experience. There are some journalists that are experimenting with creating VR content. There's some YouTube channels for it, but it's definitely not mainstream.
Very cool. I have to check that out. One of the things I struggle with sometimes is trouble sleeping at night, and I put on headphones, got to go to sleep, but I don't know if visual stimulation is what I really need when I'm trying to sleep, but it could be interesting to check out, definitely.
Check out the X-Reel. I can watch movies in bed and my wife is there and it doesn't disturb her. She doesn't hear it. She doesn't see it. And it's amazing. It works great lying down. So check it out.
Cool. So we've been talking a lot about, the kinds of things you do for clients and how you help them, but what's your vision, your dream for your own firm? If we were to sit down, 4 years from now and rehuddle and you had a great 4-year run, kind of what does that vision look like? What are you trying to accomplish?
Well, that's a big question too. But first of all, so Lightspeed, we're 12 years in. We started in 2013. And one of the things that was very deliberate was that I didn't call it Rasiel. My name is Ethan Rasiel. I didn't call it like Rasiel PR. Edelman or Weber Shandwick or Burson Marcel or most of these agencies are named after the founders. I could have named it, Rasiel Prosha, who's my co-founder, but we didn't want it to be about us, the leaders. We wanted to build something that was not just about us, that was about the team. And we have an amazing team. And so that's the goal, is to build something that goes on, after I'm ready to retire, and that I can enjoy my retirement with my children and eventually my grandchildren and have it keep going. But that's only possible if the team can replace me. So that's a big focus for us. And I would urge all of your listeners to be thinking about always work on replacing yourself. Make sure that your team can do what you do. Not only for the future, but, you want to take vacations and enjoy your weekends. So we at Lightspeed, we have a big focus on, we do a lot of training, a lot of knowledge transfer, so my team can do everything that I can do and act without my involvement. So that's the goal, is to have an agency that can keep going forever.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like that potentially is harder now than it used to be. I remember like 20 years ago, the first company I co-founded, this was back before smartphones and internet everywhere. And if I went on vacation, like I was unplugged. Like I didn't talk to the office. I didn't have email on my phone. I was on vacation. And if I needed to talk, I'd schedule, one or two, 30-minute huddles during the week when I was away, just to touch base with my co-founders or fellow managers. But it's like I was away unplugged. These days, that doesn't happen. You're always plugged in. So I feel like it's even harder now to kind of disengage from work when you're away and kind of become less important.
It is harder, and it's also easier if you're smart about it. And I'm glad you brought that up because you're talking about work-life balance. And I can tell you, as somebody who worked at Edelman and worked at Samsung, that work-life balance, I don't think anybody would be offended for me to say that work-life balance, at those organizations, is not the number one priority, but it is a big priority for us at Lightspeed. And one of the ways we make it possible is we don't ask or ever expect people to respond to messages on weekends or after hours. Uh, and we can't tell people don't look at your phone, but we do tell people, and here's a trick I'm going to give to you and to your listeners. If you respond, let's say it's midnight and you still awake and you looked at your phone and there's a message and you feel like you got to respond. Okay, respond. But before you click send, there's a feature you can do an email, or if you use Slack or Teams or whatever you're using, to delay the response until the next morning. So that person will get a response maybe the next morning, 8 a.m. That way you accomplish a couple things. First of all, you feel better because you've gotten, the thing responded to. But the person who gets the response gets that response during business hours, and you're not training them to feel like you're available all the time. So we want people to respect the work-life balance and to find stuff to business hours. But because we're virtual, we can use it to our advantage. If people want to we offer flexible hours. So if you said, look, I want to take a few hours off during the day and come back at night and catch up, no problem. So we turn the downside of the sort of connected, with we used to call it a BlackBerry, the always on thing, and we make it a positive. We make it about being flexible.
Yeah, I think it's great if we're working in businesses where it doesn't matter as much when exactly the work gets done, as long as it gets done that day, whether it's 6 a.m., noon, or 8 p.m. It's great if we were able to offer that flexibility to the team.
Yeah, well, we try. So what I'm hearing you say is like sometimes you have to respond right away. We remember what I said before about that client training. Like that's a big part of it. Like we need to train them. If there's something urgent after business hours, don't rely on an email because my team, I can't guarantee they're checking email at all hours, and we don't even want them to. So if something really urgent happens, please call or text.
Yeah, that's a lost art. Picking up the telephone is a lost art these days.
Yeah, pick up the telephone.
Nobody does it anymore.
And by the way, that is totally a lost art. And picking up the phone, that could be a podcast, but I'm telling my team, not just for clients, you talk to a reporter, pick up the phone, talk to a client, pick up the phone. We don't even have like this kind of phone anymore, but pick up your phone. But that a lot text messaging can be taken too far. A lot of problems go away if you really just do a call or even a huddle, but something with voice.
Yeah, just the direct communication, not to mention the opportunity to build the relationships, but just the ability to communicate freely and get to the bottom of things and understand a little bit of the emotion and the tone, not just the words that come out of the text. Yeah, really important.
So much is lost in a text message, and even emojis can be misinterpreted. So it is really important, especially if here's my rule of thumb. If you're having you ever have one of those like back and forth chats, and by the time you've gotten to like 6 or 7 or 8 messages, just call. Obviously, at a certain point, things have gone beyond what a text message can accommodate. Just call. And you'll say, oh, yeah, he's right. I should have just called.
So I'm thinking in terms of, I talk to agency owners, and most of them want to talk about AI and how AI is impacting their business. And you're in the PR space, so the actual messaging and the words are the core of what you do. So I'm curious how you think AI is impacting PR, because I'm nervous about putting out content that's AI generated, and we usually have to edit it. And sometimes we put out something that I feel like is 80 or 90% good and as good as it's going to get. And it's only so much time you can spend wordsmithing stuff. But when you're like making a public announcement on behalf of a client, it's about something important or controversial. Like you want that messaging to be as close to 100% as possible, right? So how does AI impact your business?
Yeah. Well, that's another topic that could be its own podcast. But I'll give you a couple of thoughts on AI. It's a massive ingredient for us, like for any marketer. We have restrictions on how much AI can be used. At Lightspeed, AI cannot be used to create final copy. AI can be used. It's great for research. It's the new Google. It's great for that. Great for competitive analysis. Tell me what my competitors are doing that are different than what my clients are doing. Great for information gathering. And it's great for doing an outline. It's great for even sometimes doing a first draft of something. That's fine. But when you write that final draft, it should be in human generated English, especially if it's something you're going to send to a reporter. Oh my God, don't send a reporter something that's composed with AI. You know, a lot of news outlets use AI detection tools. There's one called originality.ai. You could paste your copy right in there and it'll tell you if it's AI or not. And there are certain dead giveaways. You probably know this, but you know about the M dash?
No, tell me about the dead giveaways in these products. I'm not familiar with them. I think my kids probably know about them because they're in school and the schools are probably using them, but I don't know about them.
The M dash is a big dash. So if you just push the dash button on your keyboard, it makes the little.
Oh yeah, I can never figure out how to do that big dash. When I always use like the double dash because I don't know how to use the big dash.
No one knows how to use it, but you know who does use it? ChatGPT. So if you now that I mentioned this, you're going to be like, oh my God, it's everywhere. Every answer you get from ChatGPT, their answers are going to be packed with that M dash. So if you look at any response or any of the other AI tools that are out there, they all do it. But that's one. Another one is the listicle with all the cute little emoji for each bullet. You're not, but these things, and there's certain words, but these things make the AI jump right out. And not only is it usually bad, but a lot of times it's wrong. There's hallucination. So, you can't trust. And I tell my team, even if you use AI for a draft, you must fact check everything yourself because there's errors in a lot of this work. And what we're finding now is that our clients are sending, like I ask my client, I say, this reporter wants a piece of contributed content. They want a blog. Can you send me something and we'll get it published for you? Well, I know if they send it to me in 10 minutes, that they, type something into one of the tools and shot something over. So we're now telling clients again in that training, same rules apply. Don't send us AI generated content. It needs to be in your own words. Use it for research, use it for a draft, but don't use it for a final draft.
Cool. So shifting gears a little bit here, since my day job is running bookkeeping, accounting, finance, and tax for other businesses, I need to ask you a couple questions in that area. I'm curious how you go about, managing the finances for your own agency, who you have do the work, and what kind of reports or metrics do you get to stay on top of things?
One of the things that I love about our agency is that there's two leaders. There's myself and there's my co-founder, Amanda. And she is generally responsible for the business side of things. So looking at those massive spreadsheets and team utilization and doing invoices and taxes, we do the QuickBooks. So she's doing all that stuff. I focus more on client management and business development, and she focuses more on the business side. That's a really good combination. And I recommend anybody who's thinking of starting their own agency to have at least a partner to help you with that stuff. So I'm not the expert on accounting software and reports, but we do a call once a month where we go through all the numbers and go through the spreadsheets, and we look really closely at utilization. I mean, it was the same thing at my last job when I was at Edelman, my last agency job. Uh, Surprisingly, some agencies aren't looking at that, but you do want to make sure your team members are busy enough. Seems obvious, but that's the one thing that you don't want to lose track of.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a certain perspective in the market now that, timesheets are old school and you shouldn't track time. But on the other hand, labor is the single biggest cost by far for agencies, and you got to know where the labor is spending its time and where all the cost is going. So I think my perspective is it's all about kind of making it easy for people to track their time. Nobody should be sitting down and filling out a spreadsheet at the end of the week to report their hours, right? It's be like using tools like Harvest or whatever other PSA systems agencies are using. Like, have your task programmed in, click the timer start button when you start working on it, click the stop button when you're done. Just have it automatically populate the time. Make it easy for people, but we can't get away from kind of tracking, our single largest cost and assessing client and project profitability.
Yeah, that's right. And I recommend Toggle, which probably you've heard.
Yeah, Toggle's great too. Yeah.
What I like about that one is that it is a Slack integration. We use Slack for everything. So it knows what channel, if you're typing messages in a channel, it knows that you're doing that and it automatically records that time. So you don't have to manually switch it and start and stop it. It just kind of keeps an eye on what you're doing and has a pretty good number. So our team uses that and it's been pretty good.
So what excites you about the future for your business or your industry?
For me, a big one, there's two things. One is globalization. We are doing a lot of work with Europe and with China. And especially we do a lot of work with consumer electronics and with what's going on with tariffs. Some of the consumer electronics companies are wanting to increase their emphasis on marketing to Canada and marketing to Europe versus US because of they're not making the same margins they did with the tariffs as they are. So we've found some Europe partners. So when I talk to companies and say, well, I really want to be in, England, France, and Germany and UK, then I've got partners that I can pull into the Lightspeed orbit and do it. And we're getting a lot of work from China. So I went to China a few months ago, spoke at a conference there and got some clients. So I'm really enjoying the globalization of it. That's a big area of growth for us.
Do you tend to work with other marketing agencies, given you're kind of focused more on the PR and the communication side, not everything else? Do you find yourself partnering with other agencies?
We do partner with, we partner with a lot. PR is at the core, but we're called Lightspeed PR and marketing actually, which we changed about 5 years ago because we aren't only doing traditional PR, earned media publicity. We're also doing SEO and influencer and paid ads and search engine marketing, SEM. We're doing Wikipedia editing. We're video production. So I have people that can do all those things. So about 40% of our business now is that broader digital marketing area. And it's great when we can do it all because it's the synergies there. And so, yeah, so to answer your question, we do partner with, we often partner with other agencies to align with them on what they're doing.
Cool. And so let's think about, I'm curious to understand, you talked a little bit about your career trajectory and worked at Edelman, you worked at Samsung, big companies in-house as on an agency at Edelman. But when you were like little boy Ethan, did you think you'd be one day owning and managing your own business?
Never occurred to me, no. In fact, what I always assumed that I would be is a computer programmer, a coder. I had a computer from a young age. For anybody who's wondering, it was a TRS-80. So if you remember that.
I had a Commodore VIC-20 and then a Commodore 64 when I was a kid.
Those were the popular ones that my friends had, but I was different. I had a TRS-80. But we had the VIC-20 at school, and my friends had Commodore 64s. But I figured I would get magazines and type in the computer programs from the magazine and record them to cassette tape and all that stuff, so I figured I'd be a computer programmer. And I actually initially went to Carnegie Mellon to become a computer programmer. That was what I was going to do. Turns out I was terrible at that and couldn't cut it. And it turns out that I didn't want to be looking at a computer all day. Turns out I like talking to people and I like going to events and I like doing news. And so I ended up doing PR, but still for tech. So I love it.
And how did you come to want to own your own firm?
Well, that came from the past two experiences that I had, because I found that being at a PR agency at Edelman and then being at Samsung and managing at Samsung, I managed 5 agencies at once because we had one for TV and one for appliances and one for tablet and et cetera. So I realized that all these agencies had the same problems and I thought I could do better. I know it sounds really egotistical to say that, but I thought that I could come up with a better way. And that's after leaving Samsung, my co-founder Amanda had just left her job at that time. And we were like, what do we do now? And I said, why don't we start our own agency? And I realized that we could have certain principles that were better than everybody else. And one of them is transparency. So the thing that annoyed me most when I was at Samsung, I would get like a monthly report or maybe a weekly meeting. But by the time we did the meeting, it was too late to say that was wrong or the information was out of date. So we do this thing at Lightspeed. That's our Lightspeed dashboard. It's just a Google spreadsheet, but it's real-time reporting of what we're doing. And what the reporters say, what the clips are, the awards, the speaking ups. So that's just one example, but we're super transparent and in real time and being really efficient. And the other thing was being virtual. Now we've had COVID and now everybody's virtual, but in 2013, it wasn't that common. We were one of the first PR agencies to be purely virtual. It's always been virtual. I've always been working from home. I'm home now in my home office. Everybody works from home. And so we pioneered that well before everybody was forced to do it because of COVID. And so we're a little bit ahead of the game on the virtual collaboration. And that's been really helpful too. But traditional agencies like I was in for many years, where you go to an office, not that efficient. Turns out you can be super efficient doing it this way. So more efficient, more transparent. It's better. Our clients are happy. I'm happy.
That's great. And was there a particular catalyst that got you over the hump to actually do it?
Mortgage. Actually, that's a joke at that time. I wasn't a homeowner yet. Rent, I guess. I needed to do it. And I just felt like, look, I've worked in-house. I've worked in an agency. I also was a journalist for a couple of years, working at a daily newspaper. So I figured, how can I put all these skills to use? And Lightspeed was born, and it's been a blast. It's been amazing.
That's awesome. So if you could go back in time and give yourself some lessons from something you've learned the hard way over the last 12 years or so, is there anything you would tell yourself?
Yeah, I would say so we're about 25 people right now, which is, for a company that's been around 12 years is not huge by any means. But we tried to grow a little bit too fast a few years ago. We made a few hires and we were a little bit too ambitious, and that happened. And then it happened right around the time that COVID was happening and companies were cutting back on their spend. And, we unfortunately then had to do some layoffs. And so if I could go back in time, I would say, don't be in such a rush to grow. There's time. Take it. Be a little bit more disciplined and measured, and slow and steady wins the race. And that's what we've been doing. And we're called Lightspeed, but not because we're growing fast. We put results in play fast.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I went through a phase myself at SmartBooks where we were growing fast on paper and looked good, hiring a lot of people, but we kind of let our standards for client and project selection drop too low when we were taking on engagements that, yeah, we had dollars of revenue, but in hindsight, we probably weren't positioned for really good success with those clients. And we did the best we could, but at the end of the day, I think they were looking for something different than we were geared to provide. And they turned into, 12-month projects, not 5 or 10 year relationships.
Yeah. One of the things I'm proud of is we have a lot of clients who have been with us 5 years or more. And that means the world to me. And we've even had a lot of our clients have been acquired. And we've had a lot of clients that have been acquired and kept us. And now we handle the agency that acquired them. So now we hired the parent company has given us work too. That's happened a bunch of times. So that's the biggest compliment you could pay me is to keep us around for that many years. It shows me we must be doing something right. And like you said, Cal, part of that is making sure to pick the best clients that we're a good fit for. If we say yes to everybody, you're right. It's going to spin out after a few months, and we want long-term stuff where we can grow together.
One of the other topics that you mentioned when we were chatting earlier was kind of global expansion, and you employ people in different parts of the world. And all agencies are kind of trying to navigate the mix of internal W-2 employees versus contractors and international staff. So how are you juggling that?
We don't have employees in other countries. We tried. Full-time employees in other countries is the challenge with like the stuff you were talking about. I don't think you need a visa if the person is working remote, but there's lots of tax issues and challenges. Um, but we do have team members that are in Europe, in the UK. We have team members all over the place in Canada. So we work with them on a kind of freelance hourly basis.
Yeah, I'm dealing, unfortunately, with a consequence. We've got at SmartBooks, we've got a team in Jamaica that does a lot of the bookkeeping and accounting work for clients, and they just got nailed by the largest hurricane that's ever hit the island over the past 24 hours or so. And, as far as we know, everybody's safe, but, there's electricity, internet, and water and utility outages and some flooding. So it's, the challenges to manage through that we're all working with, those of us who do that.
I hope everybody's safe and okay. I know that's a lot happening there in Jamaica.
Yeah, thanks. One other thing before we wrap up here is you might have mentioned it earlier, but I believe you've written a book around, or your co-founder Amanda maybe wrote a book around VR and AR, and what's that about, and why should people, I guess, care and need to download it and read it?
Yeah, almost exactly. The book is about PR. I know a different acronym. It's called PR Confidential.
Okay.
So it's an Amazon bestseller. My co-founder Amanda Proscia did write that, and it's a quick read. You can read it in a couple of hours, but it's kind of done as an advice column style. So it's like all the questions that clients ask us, we put in there, and then we answer them in a kind of a fun, entertaining way. So look behind the scenes of what PR agencies really do. But if you go to my website, you fill out a form, I'll send you a PDF. You'll get a free copy. So PR Confidential, and check out it's www.lightspeedpr.com, LIGHT Speed PR, and happy to send the book along to you.
Cool. Is that the best way for listeners to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can email me. It's Ethan, ETHAN, at lightspeedpr.com, LIGHTSPEDPR.com.
Awesome. So when you're not working, what do you like to do outside of work, Ethan?
I'm a Disney freak. I'm obsessed. I'm a Disney adult. I have 3 kids, but I love Disney. I go to all the parks. I even went to the ones in China that very few Americans even know exists. But I love the Disney theme parks. A lot of it is because of the technology that they use. It's just, the animatronics and all that stuff is amazing. So I love Disney and I love racquetball. So if anybody is in the New Jersey area and wants to play, I'm looking for some new people to play racquetball with.
Well, great. Whereabouts are you in New Jersey?
I'm in Maplewood, which is a suburb of Newark.
Okay, so kind of north central. I'm just probably butchering it, but yeah, my wife is from, I think, a little slightly southwest of there, but yes. Awesome. Yeah, racquetball is cool. I went through a phase for a couple years of playing a lot of squash because there just happened to be a squash club across the street from where the office was for my first company I co-founded. So my partner Nate and I would go over there and play squash at lunchtime for a couple of years, and it was a lot of fun actually.
It's fun and it's great way to get, out your stress by smacking the heck out of that ball. So racquetball is great. Squash is pretty popular too. It's almost the same thing, slightly different sports, but yeah, those are great. And you can play them year round. You don't have to worry about weather. So I recommend racquetball and squash to anybody who wants a good workout.
Yeah, I mean, I like outdoor stuff in general, but up here in New England, there's a few months out of the year you just can't do a lot of outdoor sports. So I think squash or racquetball would be great as an indoor activity over the winter. Cool. Well, listen, Ethan, I really appreciate your time, everything you've shared. I think it's been a very informative discussion. Hopefully the audience has learned something today from it. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Cal. It was a pleasure. Really enjoyed chatting with you.
So listeners, if you learned something today or you laughed or you just enjoy hearing about the trials and tribulations of a fellow agency owner, please tell your peers about this podcast. We're all in this together, and let's get the word out to fellow agency owners. Thank you again, Ethan. This has been another exciting episode of the Marketing Agency Power Hour. We'll see you all next time. Another episode in the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and more, please visit marketingagencypowerhour.com. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, providing marketing agencies with bookkeeping, accounting, and finance support. With SmartBooks, you gain the clarity and confidence to make your agency a success. Until next time.